The Trump campaign is also calling for a recount in Wisconsin. Former Governor Scott Walker is casting doubt about whether that would be enough to help President Trump change the outcome in that very crucial battleground state. The Republican tweeted yesterday that Joe Biden's 20,000 vote lead is, quote, a high hurdle, but later tweeted this: an error in reporting could change that, and said that he does support a recount in Wisconsin. Former Governor Scott Walker joins us now to discuss. Good morning to you, Governor Walker. Really good to see you again.
Good morning. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
We're glad you're here. Let's start with, okay, 99% of the votes are in your state. There is a 20,000 difference. Do you think that he could actually overcome that?
Well, with millions of votes cast, you're talking about less than 1%, about 0.7% of the vote is the difference between the two candidates. And as you just alluded to, it's about 21,000 votes. So right now, today, if nothing else changed, that is indeed a high hurdle. Typically in the past, we saw a recount 4 years ago in the presidential election. It swung about, I think the president gained about 131 votes. 9 years ago in a state Supreme Court race, the swing was about 300 votes. So typically hundreds, not thousands of votes shift in an election statewide. Having said that, that same Supreme Court election years ago in the canvass, which is still going on and won't be done until at least 14 days after the election for the local entities. And then on December 1st, all of the state canvass is done. At that point, you did have in that Supreme Court race a switch of thousands of votes when they actually found votes that had not been added to the tally. That's why I said be ready for a recount, but wait till after the canvass.
You know, the Trump campaign is claiming irregularities. They've mentioned the word fraud when it comes to voting in your state. What do you have to say about that? When you hear that, what do you think?
Well, there are a number of concerns. For example, there are some wards in the city of Milwaukee where there were as many as 200% voters that voted 200%, I should say, of what the previous registered voters are. Now, to be clear, in Wisconsin, we have same-day voter registration. So it is clearly possible that you had a surge, because in many of those wards, not only did Democrats focus, you had unprecedented attention by the president's campaign in the African-American community in Milwaukee. So in some of those wards, which are predominantly African-American, there could have been that kind of an increase. But I think it's worth at least checking in to make sure those numbers match up with people who registered on that day.
But have you seen any evidence of fraud, Governor Walker? Have you seen any evidence or heard?
No.
Okay. All right.
I have not.
Right.
I'm saying no matter what ward you're in, if it's 200% of the people who were registered, I think that raises a red flag, whether it's in the city, the suburbs, or in a small town in Wisconsin. And that's the sort of thing you find in the canvas as you check to make sure the numbers add up. Because typically, when you have problems out there, it's not corruption, it's somebody made an error.
An error, yeah.
This may not be an error, but you need to at least check into things like that.
So, Governor Walker, I want to talk about the possibility of an error, because under the rules there in Wisconsin, the candidate who wants a recount has to pay for it. That means donations. That means real money from real people who may not have it to spare. So is there any record that you've seen of an error in reporting large enough to actually change the outcome in Wisconsin?
Closest you got in 2011 was about 14,000 votes. That's shy of the 21,000, but it's at least in that ballpark. And obviously, it would depend on what part of the state it came in. In that case, it came in out of the city of Brookfield, which was a very Republican-leaning community in a very Republican county. And that did sway the outcome of the election. I don't know that there's an example of that out there, but it's at least what I've said is take a breath. Let's look at the canvas. Let's not declare a winner until the canvases are complete. And once that's done, if there's a big margin out there, then it is indeed difficult to go over that kind of a hurdle.
Governor, 4 years ago, President Trump flipped Wisconsin from blue to red. If former Vice President Joe Biden holds on to this 20,000, 21,000 vote margin, why do you think he will have succeeded in flipping it back?
Well, I've just said all along, this is going to be razor thin. 4 years ago, the president won Wisconsin, but by less than 50%, by just really a hair of a distinction between him and Hillary Clinton. It looks like it's going to be about the same percentage, which is why every vote that's legally cast should be counted in Wisconsin and across the country.
But what do you think changed politically, Governor Walker, from this? From Wisconsin, going from a red state, you're a Republican governor there, to a state with, I believe it's a Democratic governor, and now potentially Joe Biden carrying it in the presidential race?
Well, it's always been close. You had the vote for governor 2 years ago was about 1% difference. Statewide, you have significant Republican majorities in both houses of the legislature. You have 5 of the 8 members of Congress are Republicans, and you have 1 Republican and 1 Democrat state senator. It's a typical battleground state. It's going to be close every single election. And you've had unprecedented turnout in many parts of the state of Wisconsin for both Joe Biden and for Donald Trump. And I think it's going to continue to be a battleground state going forward.
Yeah, Governor Walker, actually, I think that's an important corrective there because there were some polls going in suggesting there was a wider margin than turned out to be the case. And that little history lesson there from you, I think, is a reminder of why. So thank you very much. We appreciate you getting up with us.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.